Peace. What's going on, YouTube? It's KJ back again with another video. All right, so today I wanted to get into the psychic vampires topic. This is for pretty much anyone, not just the empaths. All right, so psychic vampires, vampirism comes in many different forms. And we got to understand it's not just what you've seen on TV, because on TV they like to portray it in a really fantasy, adventure-oriented type of thing. Not saying that doesn't exist or hasn't existed in the past. Vampires do exist. They're similar to how they're shown on TV, but it's a lot more subtle. It's more than just a super speed. They bite you on the neck, you die, you become a vampire. It's a lot different from that. And this happens. It happens in ways you wouldn't think, because these types of vampires can be what you consider to be your friends or family, and your energy can be taken at any time. And it's not just about vampires outside of yourself too, because the greatest vampire, the most powerful vampire, is the one inside of you. A lot of times we like to think that other people are draining our energy. We like to think that people can come and put all this negative energy on us, but what's really dependent on whether that happens or not is your attitude, your perception, and your control over yourself and your emotional state, your control over your feelings and your thoughts. Your emotional control determines whether your energy gets drained or not. And so this is why I say the biggest vampire is the one in you, because how you react to it, how much you internalize what happens outside of you, rather than you taking what you want to see, the world that you want to be in, and how you handle things, rather than you taking from what's inside of you and what you intend to create and putting it out there versus everything else happening to you and you reacting to it. That determines whether you're a vampire or whether you're a god. And that's real. So the psychic vampire, and you might not have heard about this, right? There's a book called Psychic Vampires that you need to get, that touches base on what we're about to talk about. This psychic vampire occurs when, let's say you're in a situation that you want to escape from, but you can't, or at least you tell yourself you can't, because you want to please the other person. That is a form of psychic vampirism. Especially if the other person gives you that expectation that you owe them something. That's a form of psychic vampirism. That's an example. And you wanting to please them rather than you being honest that, hey, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't where I want to be. You wanting to please them is a form of vampirism on yourself. So that's a quick example of how that runs in the background. Psychic vampirism, anyone could be a vampire. And you can see this a lot in relationships, abusive relationships. That's another form of psychic vampirism. People being addicted to anything, that's a form of vampirism on yourself. And any type of abusive relationship, any type of relationship where, there's an imbalance. And this isn't even just romantic relationships. This can be in friendships too. Those friends that are never there when you need something, right? But they expect you to be there all the time. That's a form of vampirism. They expect you to be there all the time, but only on their time. And relationships as well. That's a form of vampirism. If you work at a bad job, that's a form of vampirism. And if you tell yourself that you can't leave that job, even though it's terrible for you, it's draining you, that's a form of vampirism too. Your perception as well. Every day you're in control of creating a reality. This is one thing that I do when I wake up. The first thing I do is meditate. And I imagine my day going the best way that it possibly can. And I'm talking like when I go drive, no traffic, green lights all day. And, when I go to work, it's a good day at work. I imagine that my relationships with the people that I encounter on a daily basis, or even strangers, goes well. and I create that environment for myself. Now, when you start doing this, you might not see results right away. And the reason why you might not see results right away is because you have to get into your subconscious mind through repetition that this is how things work, and it will work. But if you ever realize, when you expect things to go bad and you just constantly keep saying, man, it's going to be a shitty day. Man, I don't even want to go to work. Man, I don't want to go here. Man, I don't want to go there. I don't want to see this person. I don't want to see that person. Man, if he says that to me, if she says that to me, yada, 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 I'm about to snap. You are manifesting a bad day. You're manifesting bad experiences. You're drawing, magnetizing all of that to you. And the reason why is because you're telling your subconscious mind that this is reality. Telling your subconscious mind that this is your perception, and your perception does create your reality. Absolutely. And especially, the more that you repeat it to yourself. This is why when you memorize things in elementary school, they tell you to repeat it over and over again. When you memorize words, you repeat it, you write it down over and over again, you say it over and over again. That's the way that you get it down pack. So this is my message to you when it comes to that. When you meditate, when you go into meditation, try that method of, just manifesting the best possible experiences, the best possible outcomes for yourselves, especially if something important is going on that day. Especially if there's a decision that needs to be made, whatever the case may be. That will charge your reality with positivity, and you have to constantly keep doing this. And there's a book called Psychomancy that you need to get as well, because it also goes in depth when it comes to dealing with negative interactions with people, because negative interactions can be vampirism on both levels, especially if you're arguing with people, and arguments are another form of getting your energy drained, another form of psychic vampirism. And the reason why I say that is because in both cases, both people get drained, because most of the time arguments they're stupid in nature. There's no conclusion that's arrived at. It's just a bunch of negative energy, a bunch of anger and pride exchanged back and forth. And anger and pride are destructive emotions, contrary to people's beliefs, popular beliefs. There's definitely been a lot of media push for anger and pride to be seen as positive emotions that are good for you. And in some ways they can be, but you cannot stay there. You cannot stay in anger too long. You have to learn to control it, because it's an emotion of darkness. You cannot stay in pride too long, because it's an emotion in darkness. Even though pride is actually, it vibrates higher than all the other negative emotions, it's still a low vibrational emotion. And that book that I always recommend, Letting Go, talks about that. It has a whole chapter on pride, and it has a whole chapter on anger, depression, anxiety, apathy, grief, desire, shame, and guilt. All those emotions are there. Those are all the negative emotions, the destructive emotions. And the longer you stay in any of those emotions, the closer you are to death. The faster you speed up your process of dying spiritually and physically, and it ages you as well. So, but in arguments, yes, arguments are an exchange of pride, they're an exchange of anger, and it's an exchange of negative energy. This is why when you argue, when you start to realize that it's getting stupid, and especially you've seen this when you were younger, you realize it's stupid, you make up a joke, you start laughing. A lot of people do this because they're like, well, yeah, what are we even arguing about in the first place? When you start forgetting, that's a form of letting go. That's a form of understanding that it's time to move forward. That's how we're naturally supposed to move out of anger, pride, and arguments. But when you choose to stay, when you say, I F you, and y'all just walk away from each other, that's you holding on to it. You know what I'm saying? And you have to deal with that at some point in time. You don't have to deal with it with the person. Not every person you're going to be able to make up with, but you do have to deal with it within yourself. You don't want to take it home and start yelling at the wall about it over and over again every day and still be holding on to it a month later. Yell at the wall for a few hours, take a breather, meditate it away. Everything that you hold on to is a form of attachment, and attachment is will drain your energy. That's a form of psychic vampirism as well. So you have to understand how this shows up in your life. And because the more that you understand how this shows up in your life, the better prepared you are to deal with it. This is exactly why I give out books, because with these books, I found ways to deal with psychic vampirism in my life. Even with people that I can't control, because there's people that I encounter that, we're just not cool, that I might have to deal with on a daily basis, right? And the way that I deal with that, at this point in my life, is I choose to understand that, listen, whether this person likes me or not, that's them. That is their decision. And I know that I might not get along with everybody, but I'm not going to allow their attitude to get into my field, to start to change how I feel. How you feel, how you go about your day, is dependent on you. How you react, how you act is dependent on you. So you don't want to be in a bad mood just because you're around a bad person, just because you're around somebody you don't get along with. That's something else that we have to work on as spiritual people, right? Moving forward, we determine our emotional state. We determine how we feel. And when you start determining your emotional state, you also start determining your thoughts. The more positive your emotional state is, the more you're reinforcing positive thoughts on a daily basis. You're reinforcing that I can, that I will, that I am. Those positive thoughts, and that's real, because that's essentially what we're trying to get to here. There's no point in, trying to learn spiritual information to not use it to benefit yourself. You should be growing, and I chose to grow. It's more than just a label. It's more than just wearing, jewelry, crystals, making a lot of money. But this is really about you. You can grow in many areas with spirituality, because that's your nature. You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to be more abundant. You're supposed to be more mature. And people are naturally supposed to be gravitating towards you. But they can only do that if you're already vibrating high. And you vibrate high by first understanding that you are in control of your feelings. You are in control of your thoughts, and you're in control of your reality as well, and your interactions with people. The more positive you are on an inner level, the more positive effect you have even on negative people. And this is why I'm gonna say this for my empaths here, because naturally empaths do vibrate a lot higher than people who I guess wouldn't be considered empaths, right? And like I say, everybody is an empath. It just it's different it's on different levels, in different affinities. But for people who are natural empaths with a higher affinity, you're naturally vibrating higher because you understand emotional states, and you understand energy and protecting your own energy. But people will gravitate towards empaths and spiritual beings, people who naturally are positive people, spiritual or not. You can be religious. People will gravitate towards you the more positive you are. And the reason why is because everybody loves positivity. Why do you think people with who give out positive messages, that benefit other people naturally want to meet them. They naturally want to be around them. They naturally respect them. If they see you on the street and you're a person with who's helped millions of people, thousands of people, through music, through your books, whatever the case may be, people want to be around you. There's also people that want to be you, through jealousy or admiration, and you have to be cognizant of who you're around, because you're naturally going to pick up whether or not these people, they want to be around you to take from you, whatever the case may be. And that includes, taking your energy, or people will take your energy by, you give somebody advice all the time, they never use it. That's vampirism. What I mean? That's actually, I should have mentioned that earlier with the other examples too, but that's a huge form of vampirism. And because if you're a positive person or you're naturally vibrating high, people are going to come to you regardless. And this is why, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm always helping people. I feel like this, that, and the other. And yes, because, you naturally have that about you. But you cannot allow these people in your life. You have to set certain boundaries, with negative people, or with people who, yes, they might respect you, or they might say they respect you, but they don't act like it, and that's something that you have to keep in mind. You want to get around people who are at the level that you're at or greater. I would say greater. You always want to shoot higher, and sometimes it can be harder. It can be much harder because obviously if somebody's at a different level that you perceive as higher, whether it's mentally, financially, spiritually, whatever case may be, if they're where you want to be, naturally it's going to be harder because you have to put in work to get to that level. But the closer you can get to them, the better. If you're an amateur singer, you obviously want to get around pro singers. You want to get around pro musicians, people who know and are educated. And these types of people usually teach classes. They teach classes and they charge people for it because they understand the value of the positivity that they bring to the table. So think in terms of that, but with energy, right? And that what you're charging boundaries, you're charging respect. People should have that naturally. And if they can't do that, then they don't have to be around you. That's a form of protecting yourself from vampirism. You want to develop certain techniques when negative things are occurring. You don't want to absorb all of it. You don't want to let it become you. You develop certain techniques of dealing with that, certain systems of dealing with that. Those books that I gave out, they give you systems, basic systems that you're supposed to transform and mutate for yourself. But they give you systems nonetheless, a framework to work with. A framework that I work with, when I deal with negative situations on the fly, is I have to take a breather. You know what I'm saying? And I'm naturally a lot calmer now than I was a few years ago. But obviously when things happen on the fly, you're not always thinking, and you can suppress an emotion and deal with it later, but you have to be in control of how aggressive you're going to be in that interaction, and you have to talk slower. That's what I do. I talk slower. The slower that you talk, the more that you can bring things to the frequency of being comfortable, being calm, because slow communication, it vibrates confidence. Slow communication vibrates respect. It vibrates love. So the slower that you talk, the better. This is why in church, right? If you go to church, you notice that preachers, they'll yell for a little while and then they'll start talking slow. And my teacher, Brother Panic, always said that they're talking to the frequency of the heart when they start doing that. But they'll get you really hyped up and then talk slow. And the reason why they talk slow is so that it starts to trickle down into your mind. You're more comfortable, you're more relaxed hearing somebody talk nice, slow, and low. So that's what I do if I'm dealing with a negative situation. Rather than taking whatever energy is being put towards me, I actually take control of the situation and I realize, hey, I'm in control of how I act here. I had a situation a month ago, where somebody was yelling at me and they were getting really, really turned up. And the only way that I could deal with that was by talking slower, lower, and with respect, enough for them to hear me, once they calmed down. And that way they were able to realize, and we were able to actually have a nice conversation. But had I reacted with negativity, that wouldn't have gone so well. I would have left feeling tired. Any interaction where you leave feeling tired is a form of vampirism, just so you know. And that happens a lot. You ever realize you go to certain social outings, you're in certain situations in business, at work, whatever the case may be, and you leave feeling extra tired. That's a form of vampirism. Sometimes you might even wake up feeling tired, still feeling tired. You're tired all the time. It's because something is taking your energy, and it's usually you mixed with the environment that you're in and your attitude about that environment. Just you changing your attitude works wonders, because you can shift into an alternate reality where things are working a lot better in that area. There's completely, see, we have to understand there's different timelines, different universe, and we move in and out of them all the time. So you can constantly change that depending on your emotional state, depending on your attitude. It just depends on whether you're willing to do so or not. And that's hard for some people. You know, it was hard for me at many points in my life. And I'm not saying it's easy even now, but because obviously the more I develop spiritually, the more I start to realize that there's bigger challenges that get thrown my way. And but they're only thrown that way because of the work that I've done so far. So, like, you know, let's say you've done a lot of work, you're at level 50, you're getting level 50 challenges, and they're not like level 13 challenges. You know, that's just the way that I see it. So the more you grow, yeah, you might feel like, oh, damn, I'm going backwards. You're never really going backwards. You're always going forward. You know, it just depends on the rate that you go. It depends on your attitude. It does depend on your perception. It depends on your emotional state. And like I said before, you are absolutely in control of it. And vampires also exist on a spiritual level. Entities exist, and you create entities based off of your thoughts. So like I said, those repetitive thoughts, they go somewhere. This is why in Gnosticism, they talk about archons, energy draining entities that want to keep you stuck in a prison. And they say that prison's Earth. This is why, you know, they'll talk about demons, devils, whatever case may be, counterfeit spirits, negative entities. And the more that you tell yourself negative things about yourself, the more fuel you're filling these things with. Any addiction that you have created a thought form, you have created an entity based off of that addiction. And that's why a lot of people, they go and they try to stop things and they just can't stop. They can't stop doing those drugs. They need those drugs to cope. And they tell themselves, hey, you know what? Smoking helps me deal with this. Not saying anything against how, you know, smoking or anything, just depends on who you are. But once you start smoking to feel normal, you know, and that's your escape, that's a problem. And I'll straight up say that's a problem. The moment you keep drinking to feel normal, that's a problem. Start feeling things that are normally there, like emotions, that's a problem, because you're running from something. And we deal with this in many different levels, but I like to say I don't create escapes for myself. I've effectively removed any possible escape that I can create, and I try to deal with things head on as much as it hurts, you know, because once you start to create that dependency, now you're fighting on a spiritual level as well. You're fighting against yourself. You're fighting against your thought forms, and you have to surrender to whatever's going on and choose to move forward. You know, you have to turn that darkness into light. That's the only way you can really let go of these coping mechanisms you've created. And you have to realize these entities, they don't have any control over you, but it's the food that you give them every time you light up with that intention in mind that, you know, your present reality, you can't feel, or you have to hold back all this anger. You have to hold back all this, all the depression. You know, this is what's going to give you happiness. Just think about it. You're not making a choice anymore when you say things like that, or when you think things like that, or if you do it enough times, it's automatic. You're not making a choice anymore. That's slavery on an emotional and a spiritual level. So the only way you can break those chains is by breaking it within yourself, being honest with yourself. And these negative entities on an objective level do exist as well, but that's a topic for a different video. And they, you know, they will put things out in the media, and in many different areas of your life to try to control you, to manipulate your emotions, and to add into that mind control, to add into that emotional control, to make you choose what you focus on rather than you focusing on creating a reality. And this is why I always recommend you have to detach from everything in this matrix, and news included. I wouldn't say the media, you have to be selective. You have to learn how to understand what's mind control, what isn't. Just you understanding whether something's mind control or not, like these agendas that are out all the time. There's always some new agenda being put out all the time. You understanding how to deal with that automatically frees up your energy. once you can recognize the ritual is being done, you know, nothing can be done to control you. Nothing can touch you. It doesn't work anymore. Part of understanding these rituals is just understanding how they work. And like I said, that is a topic for a different video, but I just want to lay out the foundation for this vampirism shit. So that's the video. Peace.